The summer of the trades is here, and now we've got intel on Giannis Antetokounmpo and where he wants to wind up. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Right now, only about 70% of you watching this are actually subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button. So Giannis Antetokounmpo is among several big names that are going to be out there on the market this summer. We already know Kevin Durant is going to be out there on the market, will probably be traded by the Phoenix Suns. But the Giannis stuff, it's becoming more real by the day. I've been saying that Giannis needs to be traded if he wants to contend for a championship. That's what he has to choose. He can stay in Milwaukee or he can win a championship. He can't do both. That's pretty clear when you look at the Bucks roster. But now we've got a big step forward in this process. Howard Beck revealing that Giannis has already made it clear which teams he wants to go to. Check this out. Howard Beck said, I poked around a little bit a few days ago, and the initial thing I got from one person was just like some rumblings that it's already just the big cities. One of the LA teams, one of the New York teams, maybe Miami. He said not a big market, but a glamour market, a mid-sized market. I think they threw Chicago in there. I can't remember if Houston came up, but it should. So first, it's like, where does Giannis want to go, and do they honor that? Because again, back to Damian Lillard, you're not obligated to honor it. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about that in just a minute, about honoring where the player wants to go and whether or not the Bucks even need to be concerned about that. But Giannis, the fact that, first and foremost, before we even talk about what these locations really mean for Giannis, the fact that there's already teams that he prefers, that's already known, that tells you how far along in this process we really are behind the scenes. Look, it's pretty clear. Again, he can win or he can stay in Milwaukee. Can't do both. If he really wants to win, he's going to have to leave. Now, the Bucks have made it known that if Giannis wants to leave, he's going to have to tell us. We're not going to trade him just to trade him. We'd rather keep him and struggle and continue to have that revenue flowing in with Giannis. He's going to put butts in seats. But if he comes to us and tells us he wants to leave, maybe that's a different story. So the fact that there's already a list of teams, pretty clear. We know right now which direction this is likely to head, and that is, before we know it, Giannis Antetokounmpo will be asking out of the Milwaukee Bucks. At least that sure seems to be the way this is going right now. But let's talk about why just the big cities. Well, if you look at market size, the New York teams, the LA teams, Chicago, all those teams were mentioned. Houston is up there in the top 10 in terms of market size. Now, this is from a few years ago, this list, but still, for our purposes, can give us an idea of where things rank. Look where he spent his entire career in Milwaukee. 25th in the NBA in market size. 25th. That's pretty low. Pretty low. And if you're Giannis and you are an MVP, you've won an NBA championship, you have to wonder what kind of attention, what kind of endorsement deals, what kind of opportunities could you get if you were in a bigger market? If instead of a TV market size of 922,000, you were in a TV market size of 7 million, of 5 million, 3 million in Chicago, you get into one of these big, high-profile markets, what could that mean? Now, I don't think the effect is the same as it used to be. It's not like it was back in the 80s, where unless you're in one of the major markets, you're not even getting on TV. No, now there's social media. Now games are broadcast. Every game is broadcast on League Pass. You get games on national television, all of that. You can be a star just about anywhere. It's not quite the big market advantage, is not quite what it used to be, but it is still an advantage for players. Players are going to get more endorsement opportunities, more things of that nature. So maybe not a surprise that for Giannis, who has spent his entire career in a very small market, to immediately identify the big market team so we could try something different. Now, what could those teams actually offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo? Because we can say these teams, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where he's going to wind up. As Howard Beck notes, look, the Bucks, they don't even have to listen to Giannis. Giannis can give them a list. He can tell them, hey, this is where I'd like to go. And most likely they'll honor that to some degree, but they don't have to. And the reason for that, it's so different than the Kevin Durant situation. You look at this, Giannis Antetokounmpo under contract for at least 2 more seasons. At least he's got a player option for a 3rd season after this one. It's not like he can hit free agency next summer or something, and he can hold that over the Milwaukee Bucks and any other team that wants to trade for him. You see what's going to happen with Kevin Durant with the Phoenix Suns. KD is going to have a lot of say in where he goes. Why? Because you look at his contract. Look at his contract. He is a free agent next summer of 2026. So if some team wants to trade it for him, I don't know, let's say the Orlando Magic says, we want you, Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant says, I hate Disney World. I don't want to go. And all he has to do is say, you can trade for me. I'll play for you for a year, and then I'm going to bounce in free agency in 2026, just so y'all know. And at that point, Orlando or whatever team it is would say, oh, do we really want to give up all of this for 1 year of Kevin Durant? Probably not. And then they remove their offer. So that's the kind of leverage that a player that has free agency in the near future has. Giannis doesn't have that. So if Milwaukee gets a great offer from a team that Giannis doesn't want to go to, let's say they get a great offer from the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know what that offer would be, but Giannis says, no, I don't want to be a Hornet. The Bucks might just say, tough luck. This is the best offer, and we love this one, and we're going to take it. And there'd be nothing Giannis could really do about it. Now, he could still make it clear he doesn't want to be there, but again, there's a lot less control in his future than in the future of, say, a Kevin Durant or someone else who has free agency coming up in the near term. But that said, it also wouldn't be a great look for the Bucks if Giannis says, I would like to go to one of these teams, and then they exile him to basketball Siberia. That would not be a good situation for the Bucks either. So they're going to want to work with him to some degree as a thank you for winning an MVP, for winning a championship, for putting the Bucks on the map for so long. They're going to want to work with him and find a landing spot. So let's talk about those landing spots here. You've got, first of all, I've already talked about this for Lakers Nation. The Lakers, they don't have a lot of assets. There's not a lot that they could trade to go get Giannis. Sure, they could stack up some guys. Everything would have to be on the table. Austin Reeves, Dalton Knecht, Rui Hachimura. They have one future first-round pick they can trade. That's not all that enticing, right? One future first-round pick, and that's it. You've got some pick swaps you could throw in if you really go all in. And even if you do go all in, what's left on your team? It's LeBron, Luka, Giannis, and that's probably about it, right? Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all you need, but you wouldn't have much in the way of depth. So could the Lakers get in on the Giannis chase? Perhaps they could. They can try to. They'll certainly make the phone call, but I wouldn't expect them to be the team that ultimately lands him. What about the Clippers? Again, you've got a draft capital issue where you've got a lot of your future picks are tied up. How interested are the Bucks in some of the older pieces they've got? Now, Ivica Zubac would certainly have some value, right? He's an important player, was great in the postseason, was great during the regular season. He's got a nice contract. He's got some value there. Norman Powell, he's got some value as well, just at least as a short-term contract, but without the future draft capital. See, if I'm the Bucks, if I'm trading Giannis, I'm tearing the damn thing down. I'm tearing it down. Ultimately, I'm going to trade Damian Lillard. It may not be this year because he's probably going to be out for the whole season with a torn Achilles, which is part of the reason why Giannis should ask out. But when Lillard goes to pick up that player option in 2026, I'm looking to move him as an expiring contract. You might be able to, not for sure, but I'm tearing this thing down if Giannis leaves, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the challenge for that, of course, is the Bucks' future draft capital. Unfortunately, they don't own their own 2026 pick. It already goes to the Pelicans in a pick swap situation with them, and then they don't control their own 2027 pick either. This is part of why Giannis is probably going to ask out. They don't have control over their draft capital. You look at their picks are encumbered for the next few years, all the way until 2031, but even if they do want to go into a tank mode, go into a rebuild, you just say those are a sunk cost, get as many draft assets as you can from a team and move on. That may just be the path that they're forced to go down if Giannis does indeed want out. So what about the New York Knicks? Could they get into the mix? I mean, sure, especially if they're looking for win now pieces. The Knicks, they've got some talented players. Maybe they do part with Mikal Bridges, stack up some salaries. You've got Mitchell Robinson on an expiring contract. Josh Hart's an attractive piece. If the Bucks say, we want pieces that can help us win right now, maybe the Knicks have some opportunities there. A little bit of draft capital you could throw in as well, and there you go. So maybe the Knicks become a threat. But the team that really wants Giannis and have been linked to Giannis forever, it's the Brooklyn Nets. And they've got salaries they could stack up, but they also have a ton of cap space. So they don't even have to worry about matching salaries. They can just try to satisfy the Bucks with draft capital, with whatever young players they can add into the mix, and then go from there. Maybe it's something like Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson or something like that, and then a bunch of draft capital. Now, that said, the Nets trade for Giannis, it's going to be, okay, what can you put around Giannis now? Can you build the team very, very quickly? The reporting from today was that the Nets don't want a long and lengthy rebuild, but still, they would have to have a plan to pivot and try to win right now around Giannis, because he certainly wouldn't want to wait. And obviously, he's now 30 years old through a rebuild. But the team that I think makes the most sense, it's the Houston Rockets. And we've talked about them a bunch, but pretty clearly, the Rockets could use a consolidation trade. Maybe it's Jalen Green, somebody like that. Dylan Brooks could be in a deal. They've got young talent, Jabari Smith. You've got Reed Shepard. You've got future draft capital because you've got those Suns picks that you can use. To me, especially now that the Rockets lost in round one in such devastating fashion to the Warriors, they should be extra motivated to make a move. And I do think the Rockets make a ton of sense as a landing spot. And they did get mentioned, though, as a little bit as an afterthought, but they did get mentioned by Howard Beck as an option. The only team I didn't talk about yet, it's the Chicago Bulls. And I don't know that Chicago's at the right place in terms of their rebuild. Chicago just never really fully committed to a rebuild. They've been in this mode of we'll continue taking the playoff checks, get us into the play-in, and we'll go from there. They do have salaries they could stack up, but are they all that attractive? Probably not. Could have used some more draft capital as well. So I'd be a bit surprised if it's the Bulls. Plus, they would need a pivot. They would need something to turn to and say, look, Giannis, this is going to be our team moving forward, and we're going to win because we're going to have players X, Y, and Z. I don't see the path to getting there. Maybe they can. Maybe there's something that they've got figured out there in Chicago, but I'd be surprised if it was the Bulls. Again, to me, the situation is screaming for the Houston Rockets. We could talk about Giannis's fit with that club, whether or not that works, but defensively, he fits their mindset. Offensively, they need somebody who can score in the half court, and Giannis is just such a freight train that maybe he does open up a lot of things for them. But nonetheless, the fact that we already have a list of teams, regardless of who wins the Giannis sweepstakes, this is a pretty good indication that this is going to head towards a summertime trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo as soon as he does officially ask out of Milwaukee. But everybody, again, big summer. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a lot of trade talks going on. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. And let me know, where do you think Giannis Antetokounmpo should land? Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.